All right, so my topic is about the impact of screen time. And basically what I wanted to do was contrast the popular opinion based on what the research says. I was curious to find out if people are aware of the impact of screen time, especially on young kids and early education. This topic is important to me because I have a 1-year-old as well. I plan on teaching early elementary, and I am curious to see if screen time is something that is helpful or harmful to the development of young kids in school. So here's a Wordle, and this Wordle is based on the final question that I had from my survey, basically just asking people in a few short sentences to describe what their thoughts were on screen time and children, if it was helpful or harmful. So my introduction, I found a couple of cartoons that I enjoyed. Basically a father saying, don't you know too much TV is bad for your eyes, your morals, attention span, intelligence. And I thought that was fitting because that's basically what the research says. I decided to research this topic. And again, I was curious to see if there's merit to the idea that screen time hinders brain development, and also curious to see if it has an impact on morals or intelligence. And I've heard some things about attention ADHD as well. So off on a little tangent, which is normal for me. I feel that if there is merit to this and an excess amount of screen time is detrimental to young people's brain development, this should have major implications for when, how, and what type of technology we introduce to kids in primary school. Again, a father looking at his son's report card saying you need to work on the 3 R's, and they aren't reload, replay, and rewind. Which I thought was kind of funny. So the background, I wanted to see what the experts were saying, so I found kind of 5 articles or so that were peer-reviewed and looked. And again, this is something that there's not a ton of research on, but there's a little bit, and it basically says that before age 2, there's kind of 2 ages that I found that came out as the key times. So prior to age 2, all screen time is seen as detrimental to brain development. Not even educational programs, so Baby Einstein and stuff like that does more harm than good. Then the other kind of main age was the age of 6, which is interesting because age 6 is grade 1 or 2 for most kids. So under the age of 6, screen time can be introduced as in a very limited way, and some educational programming can be beneficial, but only in very small amounts. Again, here they were talking about if there is major screen time, it starts to have impact on the child's development, and mainly the social development. They basically were saying that kids start to get their morals and learn what society is about through what they see on the screen, which isn't accurate, and I would argue not good as well. Mental, there's an increased risk of ADHD. It also causes a shortened attention spans. It slows mental development. And again, they say that some educational screen time can be beneficial, but if it's only used in moderation. Social and emotional. When young children are exposed to large amounts of screen time, the virtual world becomes the teacher of social cues and behaviors. This leads to a lack of empathy, so they become desensitized, and you can see that in video games and things like that. And it also leads to a lack of social skills due to a lack of experience. After the age of 6, the negative side effects lessen due to actual physical maturation in the brain. The younger the child, the more dynamic the brain, and screen time does not cause positive stimulation in the same way old-fashioned school tasks do. So things like reading and writing and things like that for younger kids is much better for the actual physical development of their brain. So that's what the experts are saying. And then I decided to do some research on what people are doing. So I created a survey that I posted to Facebook. Basically, it was short and concise. It was kind of a couple of yes, no, or multiple choice questions, and then one short answer at the end. And I just wanted to see what people thought about screen time and how it affects young people. So my methodology, I kept the survey anonymous, and I know from the comments that I had a mix of different people that I'm friends with on Facebook. There are some mothers, some of which of those mothers were teachers. I have some other friends that were teachers, a couple of college professors that I know did it, and I actually know one of them is postdoctorate, or doing their doctorate work right now down in the States. And so there are some educated people doing this. My questions were, I wanted to know how much screen time people thought was okay for kids kind of age 5 to 8. Does screen time help, hinder, or have no impact on the language? So basically the reading, writing, and speaking skills of children aged 4 and under. And does screen time help, hinder, or have no impact on the language skills of kind of children 5 to 8? And again, I did 5 to 8 because that's school-age children, right? That's when they start kindergarten. Then does the content of the screen time influence your views? Basically, I was wondering there, do people think that if, like Baby Einstein, for example, if they're doing Baby Einstein, or if they're just watching Dora or something like that, if there's a difference in if that's positive or negative. And then again, this is where my Wordle came from. Briefly describe your views on childhood development in relation to screen time. And so here's what the common folk had to say. Basically, a lot of them thought that screen time was okay within moderation for kids 5 to 8, which is pretty much correct. So 67% said that 1 to 5 hours a week was okay. And it was great that nobody said over 16 hours a week is good. And we look at this, we see the 4 and under, if they help the writing and reading and speaking skills. 7 people said hinder, 2 said no impact, and 12 said help. So here we see kind of an error in the people, thinking that screen time helps children under the age of 4, helps them learn words and things like that. And it might actually help them learn words, but as far as brain development goes, it, I would say, is negative. Does the content influence your views? A lot of them said yes, so they think that if it's educational, it's okay. Which again, we see it doesn't really matter what the screen time is, it matters more the age of the kids. And again, this is, does it help, hinder, or have no impact on the language skills of children aged 5 to 8? It basically says that it helps was the majority with 52%. And then 25% kind of said no impact, and 25% said it hinders. So again, I think it's tough to quantify that one, you know, whether it helps or hinders, but I would say that it hinders still. So based on the findings, we would look at that and say, I was surprised to see how few people are aware of what the research shows regarding screen time. I know that there's not a ton of research out there, and it's new and kind of limited. But regardless, I was surprised to see how many people think that screen time assists children. And I think that it's a bit of a problem if we have people thinking that screen time is good for kids when it actually isn't. I know we see ADHD rates on the rise, especially in our schools, and how that impacts teaching in the classroom environment. And so I think we need to be careful about how we handle screen time, especially in the early grades. So pedagogical implications. Again, basically, I think that we need to be more careful about how much screen time we're exposing kids, especially kind of kindergarten, grade 1 and grade 2, to screen time. I think if we are doing things that hinder them long term, I don't think that's good, right? I think it's important that, like I say here, that it's more important that they're learning how to learn and how to function in school than it is to learn the content of school in grade 1 and 2. And I'm not saying that the content's not important. It is. But I think it's more important that kids get set up for success in the long term so that they learn how to learn and things like that. So if we're exposing them to lots of screen time, which is going to increase the chance of them getting ADHD, or it's going to make them have trouble focusing in school, I think that's going to be more of a hinder to their long-term education than if they're kind of not given screen time in the early education. Yeah. So basically, this is kind of what my digital story was about. It was fascinating to learn about how screen time impacts kids and their brain development. It was not just and how it has social, emotional, physical implications. So basically, for me as a teacher hoping to teach grade 1 or 2, I think this is something that's very telling and hopefully will have an impact on my own teaching practices, that I will be careful in how much screen time I'm exposing my students to. Thank you for listening, and here is a list of my references.